Every major scientific framework, from quantum mechanics to general relativity, begins with a shared blind spot. They describe how things move, but they assume the trajectories and state spaces making that movement possible already exist. A state space is the set of all possible configurations or positions a system can occupy. To find the absolute boundary of a system, we look at a mathematical state with zero available continuations. Without a next possible step, causation halts. Time and existence collapse. The system is frozen. A system is born in the mathematical notation of branching, where the successors of a state, notated as suc of x, are greater than 1. The exact moment multiple paths become structurally admissible, a universe can exist. Intelligence and physical law do not create the spaces they operate within. They are entirely dependent on this pre-existing structural availability. In a system's context, the word freedom requires a strict redefinition. It is not human agency or political liberty. Freedom is the objective, structural availability of transitions. Available paths exist before anyone or anything perceives them. A geographic route across a continent or a biochemical sequence in a cell is real long before any human navigates it or organism utilizes it. This diagram illustrates the formal origin thesis. Anti-freedom, a state with zero available paths, is impossible for any persisting world. That leaves freedom, the pure availability of alternatives, as the ultimate, irreducible cause of reality. If path availability is absent, physics cannot happen. Possibility is not a philosophical abstract. It is the foundational primitive of all architecture. Having established the existence of the possibility space, we must define how systems navigate through it. They encounter heterogeneous resistance, where some paths are structurally costlier to traverse than others. This graphic shows the exact geometric law governing this traversal. Effective freedom, or F, is determined by a strict continuous scalar ratio. F equals P divided by D. The numerator, P, is perception, a system's capacity to differentiate states, measured precisely in bit cycles. A bit cycle is a metric that quantifies the informational work required to distinguish between alternative options over a given duration of processing time. The denominator, D, is distortion, the compound of physical, informational, and structural resistance within an environment. The interaction of P and D creates the lightest perceived path principle. Systems deterministically navigate down the gradient of least perceived resistance, selecting the lowest distortion route among the options they can actively differentiate. Intelligence is the strict mathematical operation of maximizing this ratio within a resistant field. Because humans exist as physical entities, we suffer from an observation paradox. We assume that material physics generates the rules of possibility. This schematic compares two models. On the right, the phenomenological order places physics atop relationships, logic, and freedom. We experience the world this way, but it's structurally backward. The generative order works in reverse, moving from freedom up to physics. Freedom opens the initial field of structural possibility. Logic carves constraints into that field, defining mutually exclusive paths. Relationships build the network topology. Finally, the highest layer, physics, is the stable execution of recurring regularities generated by the layers below. Reality functions like a structural operating system. Physical laws are not the creators of the universe. They are the compiled outputs of spatial possibility. Moving from cosmic theory to applied engineering, we examine how this ontological stack applies to the built environment. Code can be refactored and algorithms retrained instantly. Physical space, however, possesses maximum inertial resistance. Its geometry cannot rapidly adapt to lower the cost of traversal. Architectural geometry is the most persistent, unyielding denominator in the intelligence ratio. It permanently locks in the baseline friction of human movement. We can observe a concrete engineering stress test of this constraint by navigating a complex hospital emergency grid where the physical walls cannot be altered. This diagram maps static space. Fixed geometry yields an effective freedom score of 0.2, severely limiting path availability. But when we inject systemic perception, using adaptive routing to bypass bottlenecks, the physical geometry remains identical, yet effective freedom rises to 0.9. Intelligence expands the navigatability of physical space by engineering the distortion field. Physical mass can be overridden by structural logic. Architecture functions as the deliberate, irreversible engineering of the freedom field. This schematic illustrates the full recursive loop of the theory. It demonstrates how intelligence continuously modifies the exact physical matter that originally constrained it, feeding back into the base of structural possibility. Intelligence operates through the continuous mathematical expansion of available paths against the friction of reality.